Welcome back to AIdaptive. And no, I am not an Apple hater. In fact, this is being recorded on a Mac Mini. I have an Android, so I'm not also an Apple fanboy, and I know there's a lot of fanboy and fangirls out there, but we do need to cover the elephant in the room that Apple is feeling a lot of pressure by their AI failure, by tariffs, legal troubles, sales declines, hardware failures, and they are being out innovated right now. And that's the truth. Now, they've been in this position before, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But let's go over this really quickly and kind of see what all the challenges are. And when you put them together, they're significant. So Cramer, listen, Jim Cramer, I understand he's a sensationalist, but he actually put together a pretty good, what I would call very serious list of arguments. Not arguments, of facts that Apple is dealing with. So he said he's worried about Apple. He's owned it for a decade. And he said that he's worried about Apple losing easy revenue from regulatory tussles, geopolitical pressure, and OpenAI's latest move. So in Q2, the company did beat estimates, but iPhone sales plunged 10%. So they were down. So that right there shows it. He points out the biggest problem for Apple is losing $20 billion in revenue from Google, not because of Apple's fault, but because Google is going through an antitrust lawsuit with the government. And there is talk that what they're going to, one of the penalties they're going to impose is that they can't pay anything of tangible value to Apple for being in Safari. So that's what they're paying. Google is paying $20 billion so that they can be the default search in Safari, and they generate a ton of revenue off of that back. But that would cost Apple around $20 billion. Kramer says he thinks that around $1 a share. Some people estimate that higher. Let's go to legal struggles. Epic Games has been an ongoing lawsuit for about 5 years. Okay. With Apple over the fact that Epic Games wanted to avoid the 30% commission that's charged in the App Store when you purchase something and send users outside the App Store to make that purchase. And Google came out and said they are going to charge 30% regardless if you do it in App Store, if you do it outside, and you have to pay it or you're out of the App Store. You're in violation. Well, they went to they went to a lawsuit over it, and a federal judge found that they're in non-compliance and has ruled that they need to stop charging commissions on payments outside of Apple's payment system. Now that opens it up for all the rest of the apps in the App Store to avoid a 30% commission on charges in app by going outside of the App Store. Okay, so is everyone going to do that? Doubtful, but a significant portion probably will, because they want to keep that 30%. And that's going to cut into Apple's profits for sure. Another one is, of course, as they call the Trump factor, but that is the tariffs and obviously wanting to onshore the manufacturing of the iPhone. Well, right here it talks about that. Apple was trying to go to India and use India more, who's more friendly with the U.S. And Donald Trump threatened a 25% tariff on all iPhones coming outside of the country, period, today, which is Friday. And Trump wants Apple to manufacture in the U.S., but there's a 13 times increase in manufacturing costs if it's manufactured in the U.S. 13 times. That they claim it would reduce Apple's margins on its flagship, iPhone, from $450 to $60 per iPhone. Obviously, they could not afford that. And so they would need to raise prices. But does that decrease sales? So it becomes a kind of a lose-lose scenario, right? If you increase, you lose sales. If you don't, then your margins are so bad. That's a cash cow for Apple. That's another big, significant problem. And the U.S. is also looking into Apple's recent deal with Alibaba, who's a Chinese company. They have security concerns. And that could really hurt, if they block it, let's say, that could hurt their growth opportunities in China for new business. And then last one that Kramer lists is OpenAI's recent acquisition of I/O, which is a Johnny Ive company who used to be the designer. He designed for Apple, the lead designer. He designed the iPhone, the Apple Watch, the MacBook Pro, pretty much all the major products for that time period, and still to this day are iconic and are a huge part of Apple's success. He was acquired, his company was acquired by OpenAI. Well, he's not going to be acquired by them. He's still going to stay separate, but he's going to be providing essentially design lead on all of OpenAI's initiatives, which is a major thing. And the startup that he founded is a hardware startup for AI and supposed to be very innovative. So let's go through this real quick. There's a couple of other things that weren't covered. We did cover the 25% Apple tariff that Trump threatened. We also have foreign iPhone sales plunging 47% in China. And that wasn't covered by Kramer either. So in November, foreign mobile phone shipments in China stood at 3.0 million units, down from 47.4% year over year, according to CNBC calculations using official Chinese data. So that's a massive drop in the largest phone market on the planet. So it's significant, another hurdle for them. Over here, we have the legal risk. One thing I just wanted to cover on this says it could be 16% of its earnings and 6% of annual revenue, which is higher. They also point out the App Store, where they can't charge outside, is 2% of revenue and 6% of company earnings per share. So that, again, very significant. Now, if it went worst case scenario, it's not going to. It could drop earnings by around 20%, it says, which I don't expect, and they don't either, but that's worst case scenario. So even if it goes down 10 or 15, that would be significant for Apple. If we come over here, the AI crisis. So the EU, if we see right here, it has some regulatory pressure on Apple. And so it may force Apple to switch, to allow you to switch from Siri to third-party voice assistants like ChatGPT or Google Gemini. And that would be a significant deal for Apple, because they've always eaten their own dog food, so to speak, with Siri. That's a major, major deal. But they're saying they're reportedly working on making it available in the EU for you to switch from Siri to another third-party voice assistant, like I said, ChatGPT or Gemini. If we look here, Apple's AI setbacks. Well, let's remember the huge ordeal where they said they were launching Apple Intelligence, and they had all these ads, and then they didn't launch it, or at least didn't launch many of the features that were listed in Apple Intelligence, and still have not. So if we look at this really quick, we have a lot. I'm not going to go through all the detail on this, but essentially early on they wanted to do more with AI. They didn't, so they missed the ball on that, and it's fallen on deaf ears. Now they're trying to play catch up, and we know that, but it's being reported that even at Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference next month, Bloomberg indicates that Siri upgrades are unlikely to be discussed during much of the event. And that's a huge deal, because we all know they've been working on Siri and AI. And if they still aren't able to, that's a full year since they announced it, and it's still not going to be there. And they're not even going to talk about it that much. It says the scaling back of Siri announcements suggest continued challenges in Apple's AI development pipeline. So another issue is their AI initiatives are behind schedule. And right now we have no timetable for when they're actually going to be rolled out. Another one that came out, again, these are all recent, within the last week. Apple Vision Pro owners are expressing immense buyer's remorse over spending a massive sum on a headset and still experiencing comfort issues along with other problems. So this was, we all know, one of the biggest innovations that they've come out with. And it is, let's it's a failure. And there's no other way to put it. This has been an utter failure. They dropped the number of units they're producing. They've rushing, they said, to come out with a follow-up to it. The cost, to try to get the cost down, and the weight, because the weight has been, that's what they're addressing here, is they're very upset with the experience, because it causes them to become sore, and they can't use it long periods, etc. So it's a hardware failure for a company that's known for hardware. And then this is the big one too, if we're addressing hardware. Johnny Ive teaming up and being acquired, not him, but his startup being acquired by OpenAI. And if we just go down into this, I'm not going to cover all of this right here, but there are some big statements in here. So Sam Altman says, Johnny recently gave me one of the prototypes of the device for the first time to take home, and I've been able to live with it. And I think it is the coolest piece of technology that the world will have ever seen. I am absolutely certain that we are literally on the brink of a new generation of technology that can make us better ourselves. And that was from Johnny Ive. The previous comment was Sam Altman. And I, in fact, just want to share with you just a brief part of this announcement, because I think it really nails home the threat to Apple, because they've always been a hardware company who has great software too, but a hardware company, right? And this is a threat, because this is their former head of design teaming up with arguably one of their bigger competitors in the AI space for sure, to produce a brand new, never seen before initiative, kind of like iPhone and the way it came out, Watch came out, where it transformed the entire world. And I think it's important for us to understand this and not understate the significance of what's going on.
The first one we've been working on, I think,
that's Johnny Ive,
has just completely captured our imagination.
Johnny called one day and said, "This is the best work our team's ever done." Like, Johnny did the iPhone. Johnny did the MacBook Pro. And these are like the defining ways people use technology. It's hard to beat those things. Those are really wonderful. Johnny recently gave me one of the prototypes of the device for the first time to take home, and I've been able to live with it. And I think it is the coolest piece of technology that the world will have ever seen.
The products that we're using to deliver and connect us to unimaginable technology, they're decades old.
Yeah.
And so it's just common sense to at least think, surely there's something beyond these legacy products.
We have like magic intelligence in the cloud. If I wanted to ask ChatGPT something right now about something we had talked about earlier, think about what would happen. I would reach down, I would get on my laptop, I'd open it up, I'd launch a web browser, I'd start typing, I'd have to explain that thing, I would hit enter, and I would wait, and I would get a response. And that isn't the limit of what the current tool of a laptop can do. But I think this technology deserves something much better.
So that gives you a great glimpse into what they're thinking. There's a lot of talk about what that device is. It sounds like it's going to be a wearable that you would have kind of like around your neck, has cameras embedded, has obviously direct connection with OpenAI and ChatGPT and their other models that they have to be able to interact with you in real time and understand, hear, see your environment. And it sounds like it's obviously a brand new, never seen before. Now, we had the humane pin. That was such an utter failure. I don't see Johnny Ive failing like that. I think he is one of the best designers of all time and understands technology at such an intimate level. And he understands people as well and their needs and their wants. And he gets it. And he was a great partner with Steve Jobs. I mean, he enabled and created Steve Jobs' vision. Well, Sam Altman is a visionary as well. And now he's paired with him, and they seem to be very close. And I think that is a partnership to watch, and one that is a threat to Google. There's even a statement from one of the execs at Google that was testifying at the Google trial. One of the execs at Apple who was testifying at the Google trial. Q is his last name, Eddie Q, I believe, and he said that AI is a threat to the iPhone, and that in 10 years, he won't be surprised if their iPhone's gone. Now that doesn't mean that Apple's gone, but the iPhone's gone. Now that's a cash cow for for Apple, and it's their core of what they do, along with obviously the compute. But the iPhone is one of the biggest profit generators that they have, and if they lose that, where do they go? Well, they have to innovate in this space, and if Sam Altman and Johnny Ive are already doing that, then Apple's going to have to come behind and catch up. One thing that Apple has done time and time again is not be the leader, the market leader. We all see the iPhone. Well, there were other phones out. They perfected it, right? There were other watches out before the Apple Watch. They perfected it. Okay. The same goes with laptops. The same goes with the computer before. So I am not here to say that Apple is doomed. In fact, I don't think they are doomed, but I do see a bunch of challenges that they have, more than any time since, I would say, that since Steve Jobs, after he returned and started the iPhone. I mean, because let's be honest, Apple was basically almost out of business there before Steve Jobs came back. So maybe that's the biggest challenge. And they did lose the crown of the world's most valuable company, but they're number 3. They have a ton of market capital. They have a bunch of money in the bank. So the idea that they're doomed, yeah, it's a catchy headline. I get that. But they do have a bunch of challenges ahead that they have to navigate, and they have to catch up, and they have to innovate from their core iPhone. And let's go back to iPod. They had to do that. They created something that killed one of their products, right? They killed the iPhone, which killed the iPod. So they need to create a new AI product that kills the iPhone over time, and their computers business. And it has the ability to be much, much larger, and services behind it could be, huge revenue generators. They have 1 billion users. They have the ability to do this. The question is, will they? And I will pose this. I'm very skeptical about the current leadership at Apple. And the reason I say that is because they have stumbled around a lot. And I don't think that they have innovated very much since Steve Jobs passed away. And I don't think they have the core person who is responsible for that. When Steve Jobs was there, and even when Johnny Ive was there, Tim Cook, great at, he was CFO, remember, he's great at squeezing and getting money out of existing products and those type of things. I'd say very much like Steve Ballmer when he followed Bill Gates at Microsoft. However, Ballmer ran out after a while and innovation stopped, and Satya Nadella had to come in, and he turns that company around. I think we're going to have to see a similar move by Apple. You can't sit there without, Tim Cook is not an innovator. He's not an innovator, just like Steve Ballmer was not an innovator. They have great core strengths, and Tim Cook has driven Apple to new heights. If we look at market capitalization, they're very, very healthy. But one thing that has stopped is innovation, and Apple's being out innovated right now. And I know the fanboys and girls out there are going to be like, what are you talking about? I can't name the last great product that Apple put out. And I can tell you, in my opinion, that was the Apple Watch. Think about it. After that, we've had basically innovations within something that already existed at iPhone. Improvements. That's what I would call them. Improvements, watch improvements. But people, they're caught up to those. And you might say that you like iOS better and the ecosystem. That's fine. But even that it isn't revolutionary. We haven't seen a revolutionary product come out of Apple since Steve Jobs was there. And that's my opinion. Now, I will say and give them huge kudos to the M4 chip. So maybe that is a revolutionary item, but it's not it is hardware and people use it, but it isn't something that is typical of Apple. What I mean is they are typically in a segment and they change. They, as I said, revolutionize from, the Mac to MacBooks and the Mac Minis and the iMacs, right? To the iPod, to the iPhone, and the Apple Watch. They were revolutionary as they went through each step of the way. And they weren't first, but they came and perfected each of those. So there is an opportunity here for Apple to come and perfect AI, right? What I mean is the hardware and interface. And the M4 chip, to me, as I said, is something inside of a product that already existed that is fantastic. I'm not going to down it. I love it. It's why I'm on Apple right now. However, it isn't a consumer product in that people are wearing it and using it or interfacing with it that way. It improves on something that already existed. So I'm waiting to see what happens. I think it is going to take a change in leadership. That doesn't mean necessarily Tim Cook, but it is going to take him empowering somebody who has the ability to go in and shake things up and to drive forward AI and hardware initiatives around AI. That's what it's going to take. I hope they do it. They perfect it along with, Johnny Ive. I like to see competition. I want to see that. But that's my biggest concern. And I think with all these challenges that Apple has to navigate, that I've laid out, Jim Cramer laid out, that's a lot. That's a lot. But they still have to innovate in there. They still have to innovate, so they can't lose sight of the core of who that company is, which is innovation. And so I wish him well. I would love to hear your thoughts on the matter, whether you think I'm completely wrong, whether you think maybe you think that they're going to be just fine and they're on the way and they're going to be there in due time, or maybe you're worried too. And maybe there's something I didn't cover that you're worried about as well. I'd love to hear that. So please comment and let me know. Also, like and subscribe this video. It helps me out so that I can make new ones. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one.